Welcome, everybody. I am Steve Grubbs. I am the CEO, co-founder of VictoryXR, and we have two amazing guests here today that I am very excited about because they came up with just this really innovative, groundbreaking idea in the world of educating teachers. And so I want to introduce to you Dr. Susana Rivera-Mills. She is the president of Aurora University, and Aubrey Brammar Southall, who is the one who really came up with this idea. And so I'm going to get to them in a minute. But before we start, I'm going to try to share my screen and show you a video that talks about this product so you have a visual in your head. So here we go. All right, playing my screen. And
tell me the difference between a prokaryotic and a eukaryotic cell. Chloe, what did you find in your reading last night?
Well, prokaryotic cells are like the simpler ones, right? They don't have a nucleus or any membrane-bound organelles.
Yep, that is correct. Cells come from pre-existing cells, right? They divide and they reproduce, right? Who can tell me some fundamental differences between plant cells and animal cells? Jordan.
Okay, Mr. Coyle. So, one big difference is that plant cells have cell walls, while animal cells don't. Plant cells also have chloroplasts for photosynthesis, which animal cells don't have.
Very good, Jordan.
Got it. Thanks, Mr. Coyle.
While the cell membrane purposefully lets stuff in and out, whereas the cell wall it's a wall. It is purposefully just like nothing goes past it.
Oh, so the cell wall is more like a solid barrier?
That's the idea.
okay, so I'm going to start with Aubrey and then go to Susana. And Aubrey, what did we just see there? What's the bottom line of this simulation?
So what's really cool about the simulation is teacher candidates can select to teach grades 6 through 12 and then a variety of subject areas in science, social studies, English and mathematics, and foreign language. And students get the opportunity, or teacher candidates get the opportunity to practice teaching with their avatars and getting feedback on questioning, real world connections, and really just responding to the information and connecting it to the student. So it's a great practice round to enhance their teaching when they go into the field, into our local schools.
You know, what is really interesting from my point of view as the CEO of the company is before you came to us with this concept, we'd had this idea of doing multiple AIs in one experience. But for the most part, if you walk into like our cadaver lab or dissection or whatever, there's one AI and you have a conversation with that solo AI. And it's great because it's an instructor, whatever. But you pushed us to figure out, how does it work if you have an entire classroom of AI students, each with their own personality, their own quirks, their own avatars, and yet it still has to work seamlessly. The AIs can't get confused at who's talking and that type of thing. And so the technology was not easy. It was hard. Were you happy with the way that piece of it came out?
Yeah, it was really great. I worked with Chris and David pretty closely throughout, seeing renditions of the avatars we're creating. They were really great at responding to my calls to make the avatars more diverse and to represent the larger student population in the United States. But it was really fun to go through. And then Kathleen was really great at making sure that our students had different cultural and linguistic backgrounds and neuro backgrounds. And that way it wasn't stereotypical of children. So it was real life case stories. So it's fun to see the different perks and quirks of the students and how they chat and how they talk and which ones want to answer questions and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's amazing. Kathleen being, for those of you who may not know, our curriculum director within VictoryXR, and then David being the lead developer on the project. So, Susana, the College of Education at Aurora University is a big deal, and you have a very specific mission or vision for it. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, and then also how something like this fits into your vision?
Absolutely. Education is one of our largest majors here at the university. And what I love about our college that I think is really important is the way that we have partnered with our school districts. We partner with teachers, we partner with the superintendents, we listen to them very intentionally. We hear what are the needs, what are the challenges. And then our faculty does a wonderful job of gaining that feedback and ensuring that our curriculum is adaptable, it's nimble, it's evolving, it's always improving, and that we're responding to those needs that we're hearing from our teachers, from our superintendents, feedback from our students or graduates that are then placed into those schools, into those districts. And so I think it's that partnership, that listening, that conversation that is ongoing, that is so critical to ensure that we are always on the leading edge and that we are ensuring that our student experience is such that not just prepares our students for careers in education, but actually makes them feel prepared. And so one of the things I appreciate about what we have done with VictoryXR is that this simulation really enhances that student experience for us because our students are able to explore, to test out what does it feel like, get a sense, right, of what it feels like to be in front of a classroom, to teach. And I can tell you, I spent 12 years doing teacher training, and one of the most heartbreaking things for me was whenever I had a student who was in their last semester, getting ready to graduate, doing that student teaching experience, and I was out there supervising, and it would take them that long to figure out whether teaching was really for them or not. And so I think what we have begun to create here together is an opportunity for our students to answer that question for themselves much sooner, and for our teachers and our advisors and our mentors to then support them in thinking differently about that experience.
So my father was a public school teacher. He was also the football coach and sort of this Clint Eastwood guy. And he was a good teacher. But the thing, and it was a tougher school. It was a lower socioeconomic school. But he was able to maintain order in class and was able to do a really good job of engaging students in conversation. So I've seen, and I had him as a student one year, just the computer plopped me into his class. So I've seen how it works well, but I obviously, and we had teachers who really struggled to maintain their classes and to get the most out of their students. So you started alluding to it, but Suzanne, I'd love it if you went a little bit deeper. What problem are we solving with this AI solution?
One is teacher confidence, right? Helping students be able to take risks in a safe environment, and developing their confidence through potential mistakes that they might make. And so the second thing is then that leads to a readiness that helps them to start further down the line than what a new teacher would have to face in the classroom for the first time. And the more we do this, the more we can put teachers that are prepared out there. And frankly, the large picture then is you also prevent teacher shortage because there's less issues around retaining, burnout. Teachers already know what they're getting into by the time they are placed in that area.
So would this analogy be a good one? I fly a lot, literally every week I'm flying. And I have this level of comfort that my pilot has first completed the simulation for edge cases, right? Like landing a plane in the Potomac River. And then they get behind the real plane and they figure out how to do that. But they don't get to land a plane in the Potomac River in the real world. They do that in the simulator. So I have that sense of comfort knowing that this occurred. And I was sort of thinking it's a little bit the same here. How would you respond to that analogy?
I think yes. So that's one side of the coin, right? That you as a customer would feel a level of comfort in the fact that you have a pilot that has been very well trained and has had multiple experiences in different contexts to be able to then fly your plane. On the other side of the coin is the pilot himself or herself, right? They have a level of confidence. And sometimes half the battle is to feel confident in what you're about to do and to be able to portray that confidence as you, in your case, as the pilot walks into the plane, you don't want to see a pilot that's nervous and insecure and not too sure of which lever is which, right? I think in the same way, our students, our principals, our families can feel that confidence from a student who can walk into the classroom and actually have the presence and exude the confidence of knowing that I've been here before, I know what this feels like, I know what tools are available to me, and be able to then deliver that teaching and learning experience that we all want them to be successful at.
Aubrey, one of the things that was really interesting to me that I was surprised it worked as well as it did was the AI feedback on my teaching. Can you talk a little bit about what you were trying to accomplish with that, and how the AI does, and then what is the role of a college instructor who's assigning this to their students?
So when I was working with David, I wanted to make sure that we were able to give feedback on requirements of the state of Illinois for teacher education, but then also requirements of Aurora University School of Education. So we're a relationship intensive institution. And one of the things I really stress in all of my classes is that my students are making connections with their students. They're taking the real world and they are bringing that into their classroom. We do that by visiting downtown Aurora and finding information that we can bring in. So I was able to work with David that the students can get feedback on how well they're connecting the subject to the students in the room and how well they're taking, not that just they know physics or chemistry or geometry or world history, but they know how to relate it to the 6th through 12th graders that they're working with, because for me, that's the most important. And it also teaches students to look for their content everywhere and the purpose of schooling. So I always try to stress that the content is a vehicle that we use to teach a variety of things with our students. And we're preparing students as teachers that we want to live with in society. And we want them to see, why this is important and why it relates. So it was really fun for me to work with David to take requirements of the State Board of Ed that we use kind of as our springboard. And then we go above that with relationship intensive practices within teacher education, and then able to get feedback on that. So the students get a formal feedback, and then there's an informal one, which I like, and they're able to save that and read it. It can be shared with me or not. Our students are able to check the headsets out and work on this on their own at home or do it for an in-class assignment. So I like that it gives them the different levels of feedback so that they can prepare for their actual classrooms and working with those students face to face.
So, we build a lot of simulations for a lot of universities and colleges, from all over, from Seton Hall to New Mexico State to West Virginia, et cetera, et cetera. But this is really one of the best use cases I have ever seen. How did you come up with this idea?
Well, we had an Aurora University innovation grant. And I was, I had talked to several people, and my role is really unique at the university because my students are actually students in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, health and science. There are a variety of majors, and I work with all the deans on campus. And so when I was brainstorming with them, I was trying to think about a way, my students could be better prepared for the field. And I started searching for options once we got these close to 300 headsets. How can I use these, and how can I use these to better equip my students? We actually have a growing education department, very different from the U.S. norm right now. So our secondary ed program specifically has quadrupled over the last decade. and I still want to give really personal feedback to all of my students. So I was also searching for a way with these really growing classes to still have this very unique experience. So I started searching. I met with a lot of different companies, and they just did not have what I was looking for. I reached out. Dr. Patel and Dr. Carter run our innovation grant, and I said, is this something that we could design? And so they set up a meeting for me to meet with Chris and David, and I kind of talked through what our budget was and what I was really looking for. And they seemed really excited, and I was excited to bring this on. I was just talking to Susana earlier today. I've been taking the headset around to different conferences, and so many people are, for lack of a better words, jealous because it's the only program like this right now. There are ones that you have to upload your lesson plan days in advance, that the avatars are actually puppeted by humans, but this is the only AI generated one right now. And so I think it's really unique for our college to have this cutting edge technology and for our students to do so. And I love that it gives the teachers can walk around and work with the students individually, and they can stand up at the front of the room and teach. So I think it's going to be really great for our students. We just, it just launched at the beginning of the month, and I've already had so much wonderful feedback from our student population.
And Steve, can I interject? I have to tell you, this was wonderful. When Aubrey came to talk to me earlier today, she brought the headset, and I actually had the opportunity to teach a Spanish class using the headset. So I got to experience hands-on, right, what this feels like, what it looks like when you're in it. And it was really remarkable. And as wonderful as this has been, one of the things that we discussed that I think is really important for people to know is that this is not intended to replace or substitute student teaching, right? Or to replace and substitute part of that developmental process to becoming a teacher. But it does enhance it so much. So sometimes I think when we bring AI to an institution, people become a bit concerned that, is this going to replace the professor? Is this going to replace this key experience in our way of teaching and learning? And it really doesn't. As close and as nice as it is to have the simulation, there are areas where you absolutely still need that human element to help the student think through and reflect through their experience. So I think it's that partnership, that complementary way of working with this technology into the curriculum that makes it so valuable.
Yeah, I have so many questions, and we have a limited amount of time. But let me ask this. Let's say that a school from Texas wanted to utilize the product. Does it need some customization with Texas laws, or could they use it out of the box with Illinois' standards?
I would say, well, Illinois, the State Board of Ed for a long time has been seen as one of the top State Board of Eds as far as with licensure recognition. So students who get licensed in the state of Illinois can get licensed in any other state. The reciprocity is high. So I do feel like taking a state with that type of reciprocity agreements with almost every state in our nation, that makes it helpful. Instead of you have some states transferring licensure requires some additional tests, some additional, coursework. So that is something that others could use. We don't have specific standards for the State Board of Ed. Illinois, we do have prescribed standards that the students are learning, but it's a lot more open-ended. So we did focus on national standards. We have students from all over the country and North America. In my classes right now, I was just talking about that this morning. I have so many different students represented, and they will go on to teach in states like Washington, California. They will go back to teach in New York or Florida or Texas, Colorado. Some will go back to the provinces in Canada and different cities and states in Mexico. And I think they'll be prepared with the program. So I do see others being able to benefit from something similar, just because I see our graduates thriving all over the country when they leave.
So I want to get to Susana on that Spanish class you taught, but then Aubrey, I don't want to forget to come back to you and ask about the specific on-the-ground implementation. How does that actually work? So Susana, when you taught your Spanish class, you were speaking in Spanish. Okay. Were the students responding in English or Spanish?
So they were responding in English and Spanish, depending on what my instructions were, right? If I had asked them to repeat something, they would do it in Spanish. If they had a question about the grammar or the use, they would ask in English. So really the class went back and forth in both languages. And it was really fascinating to see how well that worked. You know, it wasn't distracting. They understood what I was saying. I understood what they were telling me. And so that was pretty critical because that's what you would expect in a regular class.
Yeah, you're teaching me something right now. I know that we have really robust translation tools built in, but when you're pragmatically applying it in a situation like this, does it really work? So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, and that's and I know I said one question, but I have two questions, Aubrey. If I'm teaching a class, let's say I want to just stand up and start teaching a class about Iowa history. Does that work?
Yes. So when I worked with the developers, one of the things I wanted, so the students can implement a slide deck or a PowerPoint, PDF, whatever they would like into the program and teach that, but they can also just put the headset on and teach. And the avatars take on whatever you are talking about. So like traditional middle and high schoolers, you can go off on long tangents if they start asking you about questions. And so there is a part where the teachers are supposed to redirect them back, but they are typical students. So one of my students said I was teaching about the Industrial Revolution, and somehow I ended up talking about the United Nations. And I was to go back through and look at like how the students got her there with that teaching simulation, because when I talked to David, I wanted them to be real high schoolers or real middle schoolers. And so that is something that we work on a lot with. It's great to go off and like include these stories, but then how are we getting back to the content of the day? So I believe that you could put that on. I'm actually going to have some of my students test, because the avatars do speak Spanish, teaching their subjects bilingually. So over half of my students are going to graduate and teach their content bilingually or have the option to do so. We have several partner districts that hire teachers in the high school level and middle school level to teach bilingual biology, bilingual chemistry, bilingual physics, mathematics, history. And one of the students, sometimes they tell me they're unable to practice that at a placement because the class some schools only have bilingual courses in the high school in English. And so then when they get to the school, they haven't learned, their content physics in Spanish. They've learned it in English, and they want to go back. They want to be able to practice that. And we have a lot of really great mentors in the community that work with the students on that, and a lot of great bilingual faculty that also work on that. But I know the students are really excited. For example, one of my bilingual chemistry students was really excited to try that out. We also had the teacher of the year on campus. He's a bilingual chemistry teacher, and he tried it out and he loved the idea that you could practice, because he said the same thing. He never taught bilingual chemistry until he was in front of a classroom. He'd never had the chance to practice taking what he had learned and then, taking it to Spanish. So he was really impressed. And I know our students are really excited just to test out doing a lot of different things. Like Susana said, risk taking, but in a safe environment.
So when you actually assign this, I assume it's an assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you send them to the VR lab, or can they also just do it at home if they have a Quest headset?
So our university has hundreds of headsets, and we have an incredible IT department. So we reserve the carts, and they will actually bring the carts to my classroom, and the students can use them. We've also used it on a grand scale. We had 16 local high schools on campus the first week of October. Students are interested in being school teachers in our local community. I call it like a teacher pep rally, and we were able to have 50 headsets going at once with students practicing teaching. And so it's super user friendly. So these were high schoolers. I was telling Susana, when I designed this, I had never used a headset before this, and I feel extremely comfortable in it. So we have cards that come in, IT support that will stay in the classroom as long as needed, and the students are able to complete the assignments within the classroom as long as there's space. They are able to also check them out and take them home. We have plenty for our students to do so. We wouldn't want any barriers to any type of assignment. There's also the online portal version for students who are unable to complete, based on medical conditions, the headset. So I like that they developed a program that you can download on your computer as well and do the simulation in that way.
Well, I think you've created a winner. We will, with your permission, be nominating it for the best education XR experience in the United States next year.
Oh,
So,
thank you so much.
yeah, we'll see how it does, but I'm so impressed. Donna, before we break up here, what is your best hope for where this takes us?
You know, I love the experience and how we're using this. As an institution, we have embraced AI, we have embraced VR. We're using it in different areas, including career services and other places. And I just would love to see this continue to evolve. After using the set myself, I would love to see us integrate kind of a coaching piece to this, so that after a student has done their class, there's actually an avatar coach that can help the student think through what worked well and what didn't work well, so that they have that included in that. But I think the potential is just enormous.
Well, it's all wonderful, and we are very thankful to work with you. And for all of our guests and listeners and those who will listen to this in the future, just know that this is Aurora University in Aurora, Illinois, and really one of the leading innovators in the teacher education space. So with that, I'm Steve Grubbs, your host here at VictoryXR, and we will look to see you the next time we do this. Thank you.
Thank you.